Have you ever tried to start a new habit, maybe a new gym routine, only to find yourself right back on the couch a week later? Or have you seen a brilliant new strategy at work just fizzle out after a month? We've all been there. So today, we're diving deep into the psychology of change, why it is so incredibly hard, and more importantly, how we can actually make it stick.
Yeah, this really gets right to it, doesn't it? I mean, that 80% number is just staggering. It feels like we're set up to fail. And it begs the question, why? Why do most of these efforts, both in our personal lives and in our companies, just fall flat? The answer, and this is the important part, isn't about a lack of willpower or having a bad idea. Nope. It's rooted way, way deeper in how our brains are wired.
Okay, so let's start with the diagnosis. Before we can fix the problem, we have to understand it. Why is change, even a change we know is good for us, so incredibly difficult to pull off? Turns out there are some really powerful forces working against us from the very beginning. And here are the usual suspects, the big reasons things go wrong. First off, we think a logical argument is all it takes, right? We present the facts, the data, but we totally underestimate the power of emotion. Change isn't a spreadsheet, it's a feeling. We also get obsessed with the what, the new process, the new software, but we completely forget to explain the why. If people don't have a compelling reason, why would they bother? Then there's the simple fact that changing is uncomfortable. That initial pain just feels so much worse than the dull, familiar pain of staying right where we are. And finally, and this one is huge, we completely ignore our surroundings, the existing habits in the environment that are basically designed to keep us doing the same old thing. This brings us to a really critical piece of the puzzle. There is this massive gap between how we expect people to react to change and how they actually do. It's like we're speaking two different languages. This is just fascinating. Check this out. On the left, you see the ideal world, right? A leader rolls out a new plan and expects everyone to logically analyze it, adopt it super quick, and get excited about the future. But the reality, well, the reality is on the right. It's a messy, emotional storm. We don't analyze, we resist. We don't adopt quickly, we're full of uncertainty and fear. And instead of focusing on the future, we get nostalgic for the way things used to be. We feel a sense of loss for the familiar, even if the new way is objectively better. If you ignore this emotional side of the equation, you're pretty much doomed from the start. And that emotional resistance, from the outside, it can look completely irrational, can't it? You see people fighting against changes that would clearly make their lives better, and you just want to shake them. Well, this brings us to a really crucial concept that experts call illogical change. So what on earth is illogical change? Well, it's any behavior that seems to go against someone's own rational self-interest. You know, like somebody turning down a big promotion because they're secretly afraid of the new responsibilities. On paper, it makes no sense at all. It seems illogical. But once you understand the deep-seated fear of failure that's driving them, their decision suddenly becomes perfectly logical, from an emotional point of view. And this really gets to the core of it. Our brain's number one job is to keep us safe. It's like a fortress. It builds routines and habits because they're efficient, they conserve energy, and they're predictable. So when change comes along, it's not seen as an opportunity, it's seen as a threat to the fortress walls. It forces the brain to work harder, to enter a state of uncertainty, and it hates that. So this resistance you feel, it's not a character flaw. It's a feature, not a bug, of our own biology. Okay, so if throwing facts and figures and 5-point plans at people just doesn't work, what does? Well, the answer is kind of cool. It lies in a really powerful and totally counterintuitive method that actually works with our psychology instead of fighting against it. Here's the playbook. First, you have to start with emotion. Forget the charts and graphs for a minute and just connect on a human level. You have to make people feel the need for change, either the pain of staying the same or the excitement of a new future. Second, you have to shrink the change. Stop talking about this giant, scary transformation. Instead, focus on one tiny, almost ridiculously easy first step, something so small it bypasses the brain's fear response. And third, you have to shape the path. Be an architect of the environment. Make the right choice the easiest choice. Make the new behavior the path of least resistance. Now, those steps are the mechanics, the how-to. But what's the engine that powers them? What is it that actually moves the human heart and inspires real, lasting action? It all comes down to one thing: a powerful, compelling story. I mean, Steve Jobs got this better than anyone. He knew that logic and specs don't build a movement, stories do. A great story can sneak past all our analytical defenses and speak directly to that emotional part of our brain. You know, the part that actually makes decisions and gets us off the couch to do something. So what makes a great change story? Well, think about any good movie. First, you need a relatable hero who's facing a real challenge. Then, you have to paint a crystal clear picture of a better future, a destination that's worth fighting for. But you also have to show the very first small step to get there, to make it feel possible. And most importantly, the whole thing has to have an authentic emotional core. It has to feel real.
And that's really the big takeaway. See, data can inform us, but it's stories that inspire us. A story is what translates the what of a change into the why. It transforms a sterile business objective into a shared human quest. It gives change a meaning and a purpose that a spreadsheet or a PowerPoint slide just never ever can.
Because let's be honest, change is inevitable. It's always coming. Whether it's in your company, your community, or just in your own life, it is always on the horizon. So the only real question is, when it gets here, are you going to meet it with a list of facts and figures? Or are you going to meet it with a story that can actually move minds and maybe even move mountains? What story will you tell?